After many long years of fighting, the Great Galactic War had ended. Ships stopped firing. Soldiers stopped running. The galaxy was quiet again. All sides had suffered losses. But in the end, humans had won. The peace treaty was signed at Vonner Station, a large space city floating between stars. Leaders from every race came there, tall ones, small ones, ones with wings, others with glowing eyes, and among them were the Alari, a gentle race known for music, peace, and soft voices. They had never built weapons. They had never fought in war. But war still came to them, and they lost their worlds like many others. As part of the treaty, humans were allowed to claim gifts, not gold or money, but honors. These were signs of victory, a symbol, a reminder that humans had survived and won. Most human generals asked for strong things, alien ships, rare weapons, powerful machines, even lands on far planets. But when Captain Darren stepped forward, everyone went silent. He was quiet, not like the others. His brown coat was plain, no medals on his chest. But people had heard stories about him, about how he had saved a station with only one ship, how he never shouted, never bragged, just acted. The alien host asked him, "What do you choose?" Captain Darren? Darren looked around the grand hall. His eyes moved past the machines, the treasures, the weapons. Then he looked at the corner of the room. There, standing quietly, was a small girl. Her skin was a soft blue. Her hair floated like light threads in space. She wore long robes and silver bands on her arms. Her eyes looked down at the floor. She did not speak. She did not move. She was Princess Lyra of the Alari, the last daughter of a broken house. Darren pointed at her. "I choose her." Gasps filled the room. A general laughed. "She can't hold a gun. She doesn't need to." Darren replied. One of the alien elders frowned. "She is not strong. She cannot fight. That's why I choose her," said Darren. The room was silent again. Nobody understood, but nobody could stop him. The treaty allowed each human leader to choose their own gift, and so Princess Lyra, the quiet girl from a peaceful race, left the station beside a human captain. No chains, no guards, just two people walking through a cold, silent hall. The ship they boarded was called the Emberwind. It was not the biggest, nor the fastest, but it was sharp, like a blade in the dark. The crew was quiet, respectful, and well-trained. When they saw Lyra, they did not laugh, but they did not know what to think either. Died in her room. Lyra sat on a small bed, her hands folded on her lap. She finally spoke, her voice soft like falling snow. "Why me?" Darren sat across from her. His voice was calm, because everyone else chose what they understood: ships, weapons, power. "But I saw something they didn't." Lyra tilted her head. "What did you see?" "A mind that thinks differently," he said, "and a heart that hasn't forgotten how to care." Lyra looked away. "I am not a soldier." "I don't want a soldier," said Darren. "I want someone who can learn." In the days that followed, Lyra began to watch how humans worked. She read human books. She studied their history. She sat in meetings with Darren and his officers. She listened carefully. Darren taught her basic strategy, not how to fire weapons, but how to think if you want to win without fighting. He told her one day, "You must understand how people think: fear, hope, pride. These are stronger than any laser." Lyra listened. She wrote notes. She asked questions. At first, the crew saw her as a guest, then as a student, and slowly as something more. One day, a message arrived. A pirate group was attacking a small colony on the edge of human space. The nearby patrol ships were busy. Darren's ship was the closest. Time was short. They held a meeting in the control room. Maps floated in the air. Officers gave quick reports. "They have 3 ships, light armor, fast engines. Civilians are trapped. We'll need to strike fast and hard," said one officer. Darren turned to Lyra. "What do you think?" Everyone stared. Why was he asking her? Lyra stood up. Her voice was still soft, but clear. "They expect a direct fight. What if we send a false signal? Make them think reinforcements are coming from the back?" The officers blinked. One of them frowned. It might work, Darren nodded. Let's try it. The plan was simple. The Emberwind sent out a fake message from behind the pirates, pretending a second fleet was coming. The pirates panicked. They turned to run. That was when Darren's ship moved in, fast and quiet, and freed the colony. Not a single shot was fired. Back on the Emberwind, the crew clapped. They looked at Lyra with new eyes. She planned that. One whispered. Darren just smiled. Later, as the stars moved slowly outside the windows, Lyra stood alone on the observation deck. The stars looked brighter tonight. Darren walked in quietly. You did well. Lyra looked at him. It was a small trick. It saved lives. She looked at her hands. Why do you keep asking me? There are better minds here. Maybe, Darren said, but none that see the galaxy the way you do. She was silent for a moment. Then, for the first time since the war began, she smiled. The days on the Emberwind moved quietly, like the stars passing outside its windows. The crew continued their work. The engines hummed softly, and in one corner of the ship, Lyra learned Captain Darren had turned part of the ship's library into her personal study room. The walls were lined with old books and floating screens, charts of star systems, war logs, and maps of trade routes hovered in the air. Every day, Darren brought her something new to study, not just war strategy, but history, leadership, and negotiation. I don't want you to become like us, Darren said one evening. I want you to learn from us, and then do better. Lyra listened carefully. She took notes with neat, curved letters in her soft blue script. Her face was always calm, but inside, something had started to wake up. When the war ended, most Ilari had returned home to rebuild. But Lyra had no home left. Her family was gone. Her palace was turned into stone dust. Her people now lived in shelters and quiet forests far from the stars. But now, on a ship led by a quiet human captain, she felt something new. Purpose. She still wore her long, flowing robes. She still walked softly and spoke with care. But now, when she entered the control room or the dining hall, heads turned, not out of confusion, but out of respect. One day, Darren took her to the training deck, a large space where soldiers practiced with machines and drones. She had never seen this part of the ship. Why am I here? She asked. Darren smiled. Because leading is not only about thinking, it's about walking beside the people you lead. He handed her a small training pad. It was smooth, round, and light. This is for defense, he said. Not attack, just enough to protect yourself. You won't need it often, but learning it will teach you how others feel in danger. Lyra hesitated. Her hands trembled slightly. What if I fail? Darren answered simply, then you try again. Over the next few weeks, Lyra trained with quiet focus. She wasn't fast, she wasn't strong, but she was precise. She moved like a dancer, careful and thoughtful. The soldiers who trained her were patient, and slowly, they came to enjoy her presence. They began to cheer for her softly when she landed a move. They helped her when she slipped or stumbled. One officer, a tall woman named Mira, gave her a small silver pin, shaped like a star with wings. For courage, she said. Not many would even try. Lyra held the pin tightly in her hand. That night, it was the first gift she had received since leaving her homeworld. One morning, a small group of human diplomats came aboard the Emberwind. They were on their way to a meeting with an alien council, and they needed an escort through a tense area of space. Darren agreed to help. During the trip, a disagreement broke out. The diplomats argued about how to speak with the alien council. Some wanted to use strong words, others wanted to offer trade deals. The talk went in circles. Lyra watched from the back of the room. Then she stood. Everyone went quiet. Lyra walked slowly to the table, placed her hands flat on the surface, and said, "Listen to their music first." The room blinked. "What music?" One diplomat asked. "The Council of Gran always plays a soft wine chime song before any talk." Lyra explained, "It shows peace. If you speak while the song plays, they will believe you are in a hurry and cannot be trusted." The room was silent again. Then one of the diplomats nodded. "She's right. That's in the records." They changed their approach. The meeting with the Alien Council went well. Trade was agreed. Tensions lowered when the diplomats returned. To their shuttle, one of them bowed gently to Lyra. "You may be young," he said, "but you carry great wisdom." Lyra smiled politely. But later, in the quiet of the library, she told Darren, "I didn't say it to be wise. I said it because I remember how they made my people feel heard." That evening, Darren and Lyra stood at the ship's viewing deck. Stars stretched endlessly around them. "You're becoming a leader," Darren said. "I'm not ready." Lyra whispered. "No one ever is," he replied. "But when the moment comes, you don't choose it. It chooses you." Lyra looked up at him. "You believe in me more than I do." Darren gave a quiet laugh. "Then borrow my belief until you find your own." The next day, a surprise message arrived from the Central Defense Command. A small outer station, once part of the Alari worlds, had sent a call for help. Pirates had left it in ruins months ago, and now the local people were trying to rebuild. But they needed guidance. Darren turned to Lyra. "Would you like to visit them?" Lyra nodded. "Yes, they're my people, even if they've forgotten me." When the Emberwind arrived, the station looked tired. Its lights flickered. Ships floated nearby like old birds with broken wings. Lyra stepped out with Darren. At her side, the people stared. Some remembered her face, others didn't. A child pointed. An elder bowed. Lyra spoke kindly. She helped serve food. She listened to their needs. She told them about the stars, the journey, the learning. She told them not to be afraid. "You are still Alari," she said, "and we are not forgotten." One boy asked, "Are you a queen?" Lyra shook her head. "No, just someone who wants to help." But the people began calling her Star Voice, a name from old songs, a name given to those who guide others without force. Darren watched from a distance, arms crossed, a small smile on his face. He had chosen a fragile princess once, but now the galaxy was beginning to see what he saw all along. The name Lyra began to spread across the stars. It started as whispers. A quiet girl with blue skin who once belonged to a gentle race, now seen walking among human soldiers, giving calm orders, drawing careful plans. Some called it strange, others called it impossible. But those who met her, those who saw her speak, knew she was something different. On the Emberwind, she was no longer just a guest. She was a part of the crew. She wore a simple navy coat now, like the others, not too heavy, not too bright. Her long robes were folded away, kept safely in her room. She still walked softly. She still smiled gently. But her eyes had changed. They now held focus. One day, an emergency signal arrived from Orn-4, a border system far from central space. The station there had fallen into confusion. Its leaders had been called away, and no one was left to command. Worse, a nearby alien group was growing restless. If no action was taken, Orn-4 might fall into chaos. The Defense Council called Captain Darren. "Send your fleet," they said. "Fix the situation." Darren looked at the message. Then he turned to Lyra. "They don't need a soldier this time," he said. "They need a mind." Lyra blinked. "You want me to go? I want you to lead," he answered. The words felt heavy. She had advised before, helped, suggested. But now, lead? Lyra took a deep breath. "Will the others accept that?" Darren smiled. "Not at first, but if you lead with care and strength, they'll follow." A small fleet of 5 ships was prepared. They were fast and light, not meant for war, but for control and support. Some of the commanders on the ships were unsure. A few even laughed quietly when they learned who was in charge. "She's not even human," one whispered. "She's a princess, not a captain," said another. But Lyra did not argue. She simply called a meeting. The commanders gathered in a shared room through floating holograms. Lyra stood in the center, her voice calm and clear. "You don't know me," she said. "You don't have to trust me today. But you came here to protect the people of Orn-4. So she showed a simple plan. Not one of war, but one of balance. She spoke of listening first, not striking first. She shared maps, old trade deals, and even messages from the worried people on the planet. And slowly, The room became quiet. One by one, the commanders nodded that they would try. When the fleet reached Orn-4, the station was in confusion. Supplies were low. Workers argued. Local patrols were unsure who to obey. Instead of landing with guards, Lyra arrived alone, wearing her navy coat and a small silver pin, the one given to her by Officer Mira long ago. She walked through the station slowly, speaking to workers, engineers, and station leaders. She asked questions. She listened, and then she acted. She placed quiet leaders in key positions. She helped restart the supply chain. She sent a small gift to the nearby alien group, not money, but old food from their homeworld, along with a letter in their own language. The alien group, surprised and touched, agreed to meet. No conflict followed. The station was saved without a single shot, but not everyone was pleased. A high-ranking human admiral named Kelm watched the reports from his seat on a shining space station. He frowned. "She's gaining attention," he said to his assistant. "Too much attention." Kelm was proud. He had fought in the war, commanded large ships, and followed the old rules. He didn't like change, and he didn't like the idea of an alien, even a kind one, leading humans. "She's clever," the assistant said carefully. "She's lucky," Kelm replied. "Let's see how long that lasts." Meanwhile, Lyra returned to the Emberwind. The crew clapped when she stepped onto the ship. "You did it," said Officer Mira. Lyra smiled, but her face showed something else. "Thought I did it this time," she said softly. Later, she sat with Darren in the quiet of the ship's library. "You said they'd follow if I lead with care," she said. "They did. But I can feel it. Not all of them trust me." Darren nodded. "Trust is not given. It's earned. Sometimes again and again, even if I succeed, especially if you do." Lyra looked out the window at the passing stars. "Then I'll earn it again." News of Orn-4 spread fast. Reports described how an alien girl had brought peace without war, how her plans had fixed a broken station. Some called her a symbol of new hope. Others called her dangerous. At the next council meeting, a few members spoke in her support. Others warned against her rise. "She is still young," said one, "still learning." But a quiet voice replied, "And yet she does what others forget. She listens." Back on the Emberwind, the crew prepared for their next journey. As Lyra walked through the halls, people saluted her, not because they had to, but because they wanted to. And in the engine bay, someone had painted a small image on the wall, a glowing blue star, surrounded by soft rings. The symbol of the Alari. Lyra stood before it for a long time, not in sadness, but in strength. The girl who once sat silent in a corner was now standing in the center of the galaxy's attention, not because she demanded it, but because she had earned it. Reports of Lyra's success at Orn-4 had reached many systems. Her name was spoken in meeting rooms, war rooms, and even in spaceports where pilots shared stories over warm drinks. Some said she was a quiet genius. Some said she was lucky. But all agreed she was rising fast. And not everyone liked that. Admiral Kelm sat in his large office on Station Helix, one of the most powerful military posts in human space. His gray uniform was sharp, and his many medals shone brightly. He had served for 30 years. He had led fleets in great battles. People called him a war hero. But now, all the council seemed to talk about was Lyra, the soft-voiced Alari who won battles without fighting. "She's becoming a symbol," said one of his officers. "She's not even human," Kelm replied, his voice cold. "She brings results, sir. She brings change," Kelm snapped. "And change is not always good." The officer said nothing more. Admiral Kelm stood by the window, looking out at the stars. He didn't hate Lyra, but he did fear what she represented, a new kind of leadership, one that didn't look like his. Back on the Emberwind, Lyra continued to study and grow each day. She walked the halls of the ship with calm confidence. She listened to reports, advised on missions, and spoke kindly to everyone, no matter the rank. But she noticed something strange. Her messages to other stations began receiving slower replies. Some officers she had worked with before were suddenly reassigned. Resources promised to her fleet were delayed or sent elsewhere. It was quiet, careful, but clear. Someone was trying to block her. One night, Lyra met with Captain Darren in the ship's quiet observatory. The stars outside sparkled like frozen rain. "They are pushing me out," she said softly. Darren nodded. "Admiral Kelm, I've seen this before. He uses silence, not orders. He moves people without reason. He waits for you to fail." Lyra looked down. "Why would he do this?" "I've harmed no one." "Because to him, you're not just a girl. You're a wave, and waves change everything they touch." Lyra stayed silent for a while. Then she asked, "What do I do now?" Darren smiled. "What you've always done. Lead with care. But this time, you must also protect yourself." Soon, a situation arrived that tested her strength. A mining colony on the moon Relantau sent a distress call. A nearby alien trade group had claimed the land was theirs. Arguments were turning into fights. Local leaders were afraid. Lyra offered to go. Keln sent a message to the Defense Council. "She should not handle this. She's not ready." But the council disagreed. "She has succeeded before. Let her try again." And so, Lyra went to Relantau, taking a small team with her. The situation was worse than expected. Decide shouted. Supplies were stolen. A water plant was damaged during a protest. People were afraid, tired, and angry. Lyra did not shout. She did not threaten. Instead, she walked between the two camps and spoke to their leaders. She listened carefully to both sides. "We both need this land," said one alien leader. "But they came first," said the miners. Lyra nodded. She stayed up all night reading old agreements, trade records, and even local weather patterns. By morning, she had a solution. "This moon has a second valley," she explained. "Not yet mined. Large enough for both groups. We share water, rotate harvest cycles, and protect it together." At first, no one agreed, but she offered to stay with them for one whole moon cycle to help build the first shared station. Her calm promise won them over. The problem was not solved in one day, but peace began. When Admiral Keln heard the news, he frowned. "She wins again," he said. This time, he acted openly. He called a meeting with the Defense Council. "She's not one of us," he said. "She never served in war. She never trained in our schools. She is a Lari. She is not fit to command human forces." The room was silent. Then an older council member asked, "Is she breaking rules?" "No," Keln admitted, "but she is changing." Then another member replied, "Then maybe the rules must change too." Back on Relantau, Lyra watched children from both sides playing in the new garden they had planted together. She felt something she had not felt in a long time. Hope. Captain Darren sent her a message. "The council is arguing about you. That's a sign you're doing something right." She smiled, but she also knew this was only the beginning. A few days later, she returned to the Emberwind. Waiting for her was a new message. It was short. "Report to Station Helix. High Command wishes to speak to you directly, Admiral." Lyra stood still for a long moment. Then she nodded. "Prepare the ship, Mira." The officer who had once trained her asked, "Are you ready for him?" Lyra smiled, soft but steady. "He thinks I'm still a princess in a tower, but I have walked through storms now." When the Emberwind arrived at Station Helix, Lyra was dressed in her navy coat, silver pin, and a simple Alari sash over her shoulder. A quiet reminder of who she was. She walked into the tall meeting hall where Admiral Keln stood waiting. He did not greet her. "You've made quite the name for yourself," he said. "I didn't try to," Lyra replied. "I just helped where I could." Keln stepped closer. "You're clever, careful, but you don't belong here. This place was built by war, led by warriors, and now it must be guided by peace," she said calmly. "You think peace is enough?" He asked. "No," she said, "but peace is the goal, strength is the path, and kindness is the way we stay human." The room was quiet. For the first time, Keln had no reply. Outside, the stars moved slowly across the window. Lyra turned and walked back to her ship. She had faced her first real enemy, not a soldier, but a mindset in the old ways. And she had not broken. She had stood. The galaxy had grown quiet since the last war, but peace was fragile, deep beyond known space. A new threat was awakening, the Carnal, a lost alien race believed to be extinct. No one had seen them for decades. They lived in shadows, their ships hidden in dark pockets of space. But now, they had returned, and they were angry. News came to the Emberwind in the form of a warning message. The Carnal fleet was moving toward the outer systems, places where humans and their allies had only recently begun to rebuild. Lyra stood in the ship's command room, reading the report. Her face was calm but serious. They're attacking Alari colonies first, she said softly. Captain Darren nodded beside her. This is no small threat. We must protect them, Lyra said, and protect the galaxy. The Alari worlds were home to many peaceful people, but now their skies burned. Cities were abandoned, families fled. The once quiet stars became filled with the hum of warships and the echo of alarms. Lyra gathered her officers. We fight to save lives, she said. But more than that, we fight to save hope. Darren stood next to her. We don't fight alone. Humans and Alari, side by side, the fleet prepared for battle. Ships of many kinds, large and small, old and new, gathered together, united by a single purpose. When the first Carnal ships appeared on sensors, the fleet was ready. The battle was fierce but careful. Lyra did not order reckless attacks. Instead, she used the lessons she had learned: surprise, movement, and protecting the weak. The enemy was strong, but confused. They expected a human fleet led by a fierce commander. Instead, they faced a quiet, Alari woman who thought many moves ahead. Her orders were precise. Her fleet moved like a river, flowing around dangers and striking only where it counted. During the fight, a sudden warning came. One of the small Alari worlds, Serene, was under heavy attack. Its defense systems were failing. Lyra did not hesitate. She ordered a fast group of ships to rush to Serene's aid, including her own. Darren looked at her. This is dangerous. I have to, she said firmly. The fleet raced through space, dodging enemy fire and weaving through debris. When they arrived, the sky above Serene was filled with burning ships and falling stars. Lyra directed the defense. From her command ship, her voice steady as she gave orders. Protect the cities, she said. Keep civilians safe. Do not engage unless necessary. The crew worked together. Guided by her calm words, slowly, the enemy began to retreat. The skies grew quiet. But the battle was not without cost. During the fight, Darren was injured while protecting Lyra from falling debris. He was taken to the medical bay. His face pale, but his eyes bright. Lyra stayed by his side. You saved me, she said quietly. He smiled weakly. I'm not done yet. In the days that followed, the fleet pushed back the Carnal. Saving world after world, Lyra became more than a commander. She was a symbol of hope for all species. Her strength was not in weapons, but in her courage. And heart. As the stars shone beyond the ship's windows, Lyra stood tall. The girl once thought fragile was now a leader who carried the weight of many worlds. And she was ready for whatever came next. The stars outside the window of the Emberwind shone like never before. Peace had settled over many worlds, but the galaxy still held many secrets. Lyra stood quietly on the observation deck, watching the endless sky. She was no longer the fragile princess who had once been chosen as a prize. She was a leader, not because she wanted power, but because she believed in a future where all beings could live together in peace. The Celestial Accord, the alliance Lyra helped form, was growing stronger every day. It brought together humans, Alari, and many other races, all working side by side to rebuild what war had broken. Leaders met in halls filled with light, sharing ideas and stories. Soldiers trained together, learning to understand not just weapons, but each other. The galaxy was changing, but change always brings choices. One day, a message arrived from the leaders of the outer worlds, distant systems that had stayed apart. From the Accord, they were unsure if they should join the new alliance. Lyra was asked to visit them. The journey would be long and difficult, but she agreed. I will speak with them, she told Darren. I will listen. Darren smiled. You do that better than anyone. When Lyra arrived in the outer worlds, she found many different people, traders, farmers, scientists, and warriors. They welcomed her cautiously. In the grand hall, she spoke clearly and kindly. We have all seen loss, she said. We have all faced fear. But alone, we are weak. Together, we are strong. She told stories of the battles, of the peace, and of the future they could build. She did not ask for loyalty. She asked for trust. Days passed. Meetings were held. Questions were asked. The people of the outer worlds wanted to know if the Accord would respect their ways, their homes, their voices. Lyra promised they would, she said. This is not about one ruler or one race. It is about all of us, together, slowly. They began to agree. Back on the Emberwind, Darren prepared reports. He watched Lyra's message spread across space. It was a message of hope, one that would change the galaxy forever. One evening, Darren sat beside Lyra on the observation deck. He asked, Why did you say yes to me? All those years ago, Lyra smiled softly. You chose me, not as a prize, but as a future. You saw something I did not see in myself. Darren looked at her. Maybe I was right. As the new alliance grew, Lyra and Darren worked side by side. She led the Celestial Accord. He was her chief strategist. Together, they planned not for war, but for peace. The stars outside seemed brighter than ever. The galaxy had changed because a human chose a fragile alien princess as his prize, and she chose to lead, with heart, courage, and wisdom. And so, the story of Lyra and Darren became a legend. A story told to children on many worlds, a story of hope. Of trust, of the choice that changed the galaxy. The stars outside the window of the Emberwind shone like never before. Peace had settled over many worlds, but the galaxy still held many secrets. Lyra stood quietly on the observation deck, watching the endless sky. She was no longer the fragile princess who had once been chosen as a prize. She was a leader, not because she wanted power, but because she believed in a future where all beings could live together in peace. The Celestial Accord, the alliance Lyra helped form, was growing stronger every day. It brought together humans, Alari, and many other races, all working side by side to rebuild what war had broken. Leaders met in halls filled with light, sharing ideas and stories. Soldiers trained together, learning to understand not just weapons, but each other. The galaxy was changing, but change always brings choices. One day, a message arrived from the leaders of the outer worlds, distant systems that had stayed apart. From the Accord, they were unsure if they should join the new alliance. Lyra was asked to visit them. The journey would be long and difficult, but she agreed. I will speak with them, she told Darren. I will listen. Darren smiled. You do that better than anyone. When Lyra arrived in the outer worlds, she found many different people, traders, farmers, scientists, and warriors. They welcomed her cautiously. In the grand hall, she spoke clearly and kindly. We have all seen loss, she said. We have all faced fear. But alone, we are weak. Together, we are strong. She told stories of the battles, of the peace, and of the future they could build. She did not ask for loyalty. She asked for trust. Days passed. Meetings were held. Questions were asked. The people of the outer worlds wanted to know if the Accord would respect their ways, their homes, their voices. Lyra promised they would, she said. This is not about one ruler or one race. It is about all of us, together, slowly. They began to agree. Back on the Emberwind, Darren prepared reports. He watched Lyra's message spread across space. It was a message of hope, one that would change the galaxy forever. One evening, Darren sat beside Lyra on the observation deck. He asked, Why did you say yes to me? All those years ago, Lyra smiled softly. You chose me, not as a prize, but as a future. You saw something I did not see in myself. Darren looked at her. Maybe I was right. As the new alliance grew, Lyra and Darren worked side by side. She led the Celestial Accord. He was her chief strategist. Together, They planned not for war, but for peace. The stars outside seemed brighter than ever. The galaxy had changed because a human chose a fragile alien princess as his prize, and she chose to lead, with heart, courage, and wisdom. And so, the story of Lyra and Darren became a legend. A story told to children on many worlds, a story of hope. Of trust, of the choice that changed the galaxy.